Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is out this weekend, guys. And did you go out and see it? I sure did. Mission Impossible 7, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning has by far one of the most ridiculous, most audacious scenes that I've ever seen in a movie for, well, the past couple of years. Oh my God. But I still like this movie. I like this movie a lot. I said go see it in the theater if you can. See it on the biggest screen because the stunt work in this is absolutely spectacular. And Hayley Atwell is the standout for me in this movie because she is kind of like holding her own with Tom Cruise holding her own. That image is not what I wanted. So yeah, so the stunt work in this, as I said, it's really them in the car. It's really Tom Cruise driving the car, doing the stunt work, and it pays off in spades. It totally does. It's like you see these action sequences and you're like, all right, maybe some of it's augmented with CGI. Augmented, like they're taking out platforms and stuff, and just cables and stuff, but it's actually them doing it, right? And that's worth seeing in the theater because it's kind of like that peril that you get from them actually doing it. You can see it in their eyes, right? And director here, Christopher McQuarrie, does a great job of editing these scenes together and making this thing happen. I said the runtime it's a touch long, I think, but it comes in at 2 hours and 43 minutes. There's some stuff that maybe could have been trimmed down and you could have had this around the 2:20 mark and it still would have been just fine. But does it end in a cliffhanger? A bit, yes. We know that it's going to be part 1 and part 2. So it's kind of like, is it going to leave you feeling like you're just kind of like, you're leaving me hanging like this? No. It wraps up its storyline within this one in a satisfying way, but it's like there's still, you get left with the feeling that, oh yeah, there's still more to do here, but I feel satisfied with what they did in this one, so I don't mind waiting the extra year or so for this next one to come out, depending on what the writers and the actors strike will impact on this one. So opening scene, actually, this movie, I'll tell you, one of my criticisms is that perhaps the opening scene and the opening sequence, because I was like, guys, we're 20 minutes into this movie and now all of a sudden the opening credits come up? Wow. But it's just shot so well. It's just like, you get sucked into it, right? And I think I checked my watch like around the 2 hour mark and I was like, oh, okay. Just to see where we are pacing wise, right? But it wasn't because I was bored. It was just kind of like my mere curiosity. As a movie fan, like you guys are, I just like to track these things and figure out, okay, where are we about now in the storyline? What should be happening? Should we be going into the climax now? That kind of stuff. That's all I was doing when I was checking my watch. But other than that, if you just sit down with your bag of popcorn and it's like, you won't even notice it, man. And it's the cast. The cast in this and the crew really helps this along. Tom Cruise and, of course, his band there of Simon Pegg. Ving Rhames is in this as well. And Rebecca Ferguson is back in this. Good work from them, too. You're like on pins and needles with some of them at some points because it's like, which one of these, are you going to actually try to kill one of them? Oh my God, it's like that, right? But as I said, Hayley Atwell as Grace stands out. Palm Klementieff Mantis as Paris, also really good. Shea Wiggum as Briggs in this. You're like, is this guy a bad guy? Is he a good guy? Who is this guy? And he's chasing Ethan, obviously, and it's kind of like, should you trust him? And I like his story arc in this one too. He's got some laughs. Actually, it's kind of it does have those moments in it where if you're watching over the full theater, it does have some laughs in it that I was kind of like, okay, you're getting reactions out of people here for stuff that I didn't think that wasn't going to happen, but it is. And it's just fun, man. You can tell that they had fun on shooting this. The chemistry is the cast, overall cast, from like the villains, Vanessa Kirby, Esai Morales, Henry Cerny back as Kittredge. Carrie Elways is in this. It's kind of like, it's just like familiar faces, and you're just like sucked into the the tapestry, if you will, of what Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is. It's one that if I had, I would go back and see this again in the theater for the reason of the stunts. And it's just like, maybe some of it's augmented with CGI. Maybe some of the pyrotechnics was added in later and stuff just for safety reasons and stuff. But it's kind of like, for the most part, like them on top of a train or something like that. But you don't really care about that stuff. And that moment that I was talking about where it's kind of like, no, that wouldn't happen. That's later on in the film, and it doesn't have anything to do with CGI. It's a plot point. It's a device, a plot device that makes you go, you didn't properly establish that. You hint at it being able to do that, but we needed a demonstration of like a foreshadowing of this happening, so that when this big thing happens, you're like, oh, okay, I believe it. But when it happens towards the end of the movie, I was like, I audibly in the theater went, no, that would not happen. And in no world and no chance, that would never, ever, ever, ever happen. It would be like a 0.0000003% chance that would happen. And to put your faith in that is like, it wouldn't happen. So we'll talk about that in spoilers here in just a few minutes. I'll let you know what moment that was. But for the most part, guys, as I said, and my straight out of the theater reaction for this, I like this movie. The stunt work in this is great. The pacing, Tom Cruise delivers, and oddly enough, there's some tender moments in this. It's kind of like, it's got you thinking like, any of these characters may not make it, and it's going to impact Tom Cruise. He carries those scenes. There's a lot of Tom Cruise running scenes in this one. So if you like Tom Cruise hauling butt, then you're going to see a lot of that in this. But overall, guys, it was just a real pleasurable experience in the theater. Let's go over to the tomato meter, see what people are saying. 96 by critics, 94 by the audience. So it's dropped just a touch by the audience. I think it was like 95 on Friday. So, is it a 9.5 out of 10? That's what I'm going to be posing to myself here. Is it a 9.5 out of 10? Due to the runtime, I don't think it is. And yes, I have to dock it for that one scene that's like, no, that won't happen. Anyway, we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. I know I'm teasing it a little too much. But here we go. Let's take a look at some of the snapshot reviews. Chicago Reader. The fun comes in the execution. Identities are assumed, masks are worn and revealed, and the question of what is real and what is fake and what to do with that information creates a steady sense of engagement. Relentlessness of this order ought to be chilling. So, not so. Instead, we are stirred and amused by preternatural sight? Preternatural sight? Men as little machines? What? Preternatural? I don't know what the heck that word. What are you doing, man? Some people just like to fill it up with like word salads. Stinging with stunts. Let's take a look if we can see some bad ones here, just to see if we can agree with some of the criticisms. Cruise's latest slice of intercontinental intrigue will have you experiencing deja vu all over again, not only because it trots out the oft-filmed scenarios, but because he stopped doing the very thing that kept the franchise on his toes. What? He stopped doing it? There was definitely a lot of international intrigue. The stunts were all there, so what are you talking about, man? I don't understand. National Review says, reducing cinema to gimmicky sensationalism is regressive, especially when McQuarrie's repetitive is this witlessly conventional. Not very poignant there, is he? When the reviews are like 9.5 and stuff, there's not a whole lot of point in reading a lot of the good ones, because it's going to be the same thing. It was a spectacle. It was big. It was relentless. It was worth seeing on the big screen, and I agree with all that stuff. So it's just kind of, I'm looking for the bad ones to contrast our favorable reviews. With a thin plot filled out by half-an-hour chase sequences, the film is 163 minutes long. Even at the press screening, people were checking their phones. So it is, I understand the criticism that 2 hours and 43 minutes for this type of movie is a bit long, especially knowing that it's going to be like the first part of a two-part series, mini-series, kind of like. I can understand that. And I can totally understand that maybe, though, like as I said, the first 20 minutes of it, it's like The Empty Man. It's kind of like, wait a minute, we just watched 20 minutes of this movie and now we're going to get it to the opening credits? It's like, whoa, okay. Could that stuff have been tightened up? Maybe. But the opening sequence was trying to establish the villain of this movie, which I don't know. I don't know if it's going to pay off in the conclusion of what they're setting up. Because basically, if you don't know, guys, let's see what the synopsis says there on IMDb. Ethan Hunt and his IMF team must track down a dangerous weapon before it falls into the wrong hands. That's kind of vague. Basically, it's kind of like an AI system. And that's not far of a stretch kind of thing, right? It's kind of like Skynet. It's very Terminator-esque in the beginning. I just, because you are going to have like a faceless villain, it did work in one scene where they're in kind of like a party sequence. And I could understand this when like Ethan was kind of like, you understand what's happening here, right? It's afraid. And that came through. So there was a little bit of menace, but the kind of thing that I'm talking about here is that I don't know if that's going to pay off when that entity gets its comeuppance kind of thing, right? It's not going to be like a person going, oh no, it's just going to be kind of like, well, it's going to be kind of like turning the lights off. How's that? Isn't that exciting? Isn't that a great conclusion? No, it's not. Well, we'll see. I'm sure that they're going to have, they have it in the back of their mind is what part 2 is going to be and how it's going to wrap up. Yeah, I have faith in them. So what would I rate this overall Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning? As I said, I can't give it quite as high as the critics and audience at the 96 and 94, but I would have to give it a measured 8.5 out of 10. So far, it's probably is it the best movie that I've seen in, yes, it is. It is the best movie that I've seen in July, and I've seen 5 now. No, 4. I've seen Insidious, Red Door, Joyride, Bird Box Barcelona, and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. So it's only 4, but we still got a lot. We're only halfway through the month, guys. We still got like another 4 movies coming up before the end of the month that we can check out and add to the pantheon. But right now it's sitting at the number 1 spot, and a lot of that, as I said, has to do with Tom Cruise, the cast, and for me, kind of a huge Hayley Atwell fan. Every time that I saw her on the screen, I was just like, she's one of the most beautiful women on this planet, man. Stunt work, as I said. Yeah, is he really hanging there off a cliff? Could the background be volume? Maybe. But at least you know that he's really hanging off something, right? They have to have safety harnesses in on this stuff kind of thing, right? You know that they're rotoscoping out stuff. That's fine. That doesn't detract from this at all, and it'll just keep you enthralled. It'll keep you enthralled, looking like this. You're hanging onto the edge of your seats, and I can't wait to see how this wraps up. And I'm really happy with Grace as the addition to this cast. Overall, a great experience. 8.5 out of 10. So, guys, it did come in at number 1 in the box office. So its opening weekend numbers was 235 worldwide, 80 million domestically. So it's going to make its money back. It's going to be a profitable movie. I was hoping that it would be $1 billion film. It's got a ways to go for that. I guess nothing is going to beat Super Mario this year, man. I thought this was going to be a contender. But as I said, it's going to have a couple of weeks here, and good positive word of mouth will make you go out and hopefully check out the new Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. All right, guys, that's my review. If you like what you've seen, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Mirror Domains. All right, let's talk about that spoiler. Let's talk about that audacious scene where I basically just said, nope, not a chance. There's absolutely no chance in this earthly world that this would ever happen. And that's, yes, including a scene. Oh, by the way, this motorcycle scene played perfectly on the big screen. I saw it in the D-Box theater, so that was a bigger screen than normal. Not quite as big as an IMAX, but it's the biggest screen in my theater, I think. Second biggest, maybe. It was rather impressive, and I sat down close near the front, so I just wanted that big full field of vision, just kind of like this played so well. I thought this was going to be the opening sequence. I thought this was going to be like the James Bond kind of, here's a big action sequence to start us off in this movie. And while it does sort of have one, this didn't play at the start. I thought this was going to be like the opening scene, and it's not. But it's a cool way that how they worked that in. Simon Pegg was also really good in this too. And to know that was actually him, him skydiving there. That's him. It was just cool. So what was this big scene? Okay, so you see it there in the trailers. Let me see if I can pull up a shot of it here. The train sequence. Now, they are trying to say that AI has the capability, this entity has the capability to predict all outcomes for all the future events. That's fine. I agree with that. Yes, the computer could probably do that. To map out exactly, to tell somebody what to do by syncing a clock on their wristwatch was not set up in the film earlier, that it would be like... Basically, the bad guy, the human bad guy in this, is looking at his wristwatch on top of the train, and it's like counting down, and at a certain point, he just falls back off the train, and he lands down in the back of a truck that's got like crash mats, and it's like, no, not a chance. And what did I hear Angry Joe say in his review? It got comic book-ish there towards the end, where even Tom Cruise comes flying in off from his parachute that we see. He jumps off the cliff to land on top of the train, but he comes in just at the right moment. It's like that. Too much of that stuff happened. It just happened at the exact moment that it needed to. And I said, I alluded to this in my review, that would have been fine if you established earlier that the computer could do that, right? Could direct someone to the very finite and exacting nature that it would be for somebody to get up on top of a moving train, get in a fist fight with somebody, time it out for all of the punches and all of the strangleholds that people would be in, all the stop or I'll shoot moments and how long somebody would be standing there, to time all that out exactly for someone to go, by the way, I've got 2 seconds, 1, 2, and I'm going to jump off now and land nicely into a comfortable back of a truck. No, it's the most ridiculous thing. It comes as close as a CGI car driving down a dam. It's on that level. But because I enjoyed the rest of the movie, I let it pass. And yes, that moment trumps anything that's ridiculous in Fast 10. It does. It's kind of like, as I said, it would have been fine if they'd established somewhere along the lines that the entity could do that. It was doing stuff like shadowing somebody, like erasing somebody's presence, like the human character. It was doing a good job of getting rid of like that, like his where he was walking and stuff like that. But that's not good enough. That's not good enough to show something like that exacting, that you would be able to fight somebody on, like it would time out that much time. I'll say, well, you're going to fight for 40 seconds here on top of the roof based on his strength or the punches that he's going to throw. And we're going to gamble that he doesn't kill you. And if he doesn't do all that stuff, then maybe at this exact time you can look on your, I'll count down your watch and you'll jump off and you'll land on the back. That's like, no, no. Yeah, and it's by far one of the most ridiculous scenes that I've seen in years. But as I said, it's overshadowed by the stunt work and the rest of the cast and crew in this movie. So that's just basically my only criticism of it. Hayley Atwell is just gorgeous in this. Rebecca Ferguson, Pom Klementieff, I'm just like, wow. And I can't wait to see what they do with Pom Klementieff there. She's like one of the bad guys, and obviously you know that she's not dead, right? Paris, she's I guess going to make a switch to the good guy team. I don't know, because at the end Ving Rhames comes in and says, "Oh, we got a pulse. She's got a pulse." So it's kind of like she's going to be part of the team going forward. That's fine with me. Tragically, though, Rebecca Ferguson will not be part. That one kind of sort of got spoiled to me by some fan that left a comment in one of the sections of my videos last week, and I wish that they didn't. So I was sort of pseudo expecting it, but it played well. Wait a minute, she's in Silo? Oh man, I need to subscribe to Apple Plus. Maybe that's right. Oh my God. Anyway, I love Rebecca Ferguson. She's fantastic, and she was fantastic in this Dead Reckoning as well. For a small role, it was like, no. They teased us with it in the beginning too, right? In the sandstorm sequence, I was like, so yeah, they forecast that, but they couldn't forecast the ability of the AI system. By the way, I don't, as I said, I don't know if that comeuppance is going to be. How do you play that? How do you play that off, right? And God, geez, look at her. What? Yeah. We'll have to see. Vanessa Kirby was good, and knowing, like, I was looking at her in this movie, I was like looking at it from the angle that maybe she's our new Sue Storm in the MCU, and I was like, yeah, I could see her as Sue Storm. That would, but she was good in this movie. Camera likes her. She plays kind of like a dual role in this one too. So that was cool too. All right, guys, that's it for me. I don't really have that much more on tap for today, so we'll leave it there. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe.